of the pandemic, what you're going to do to protect your immune system, to take care of your immune system, and to make sure you are in the best shape for you. Now, having said that, with Omicron, which by the way is a very mild virus, it is not as serious as some of the other strains that have come out, which is good news, but still for our vulnerable populations is something we've got to pay attention to, right? So for the elderly or for the immunocompromised or for any of those folks. But with that, travel rules are changing. So as we hit this holiday season, I think it's really important for you guys to check all the different travel restrictions and requirements and be aware of what's going on there and make sure you're fully prepared. As far as mask wearing, I still think that's something that's safe to do. It's easy to do. It's respectful. I know we're over it. I get short of breath, trust me, in the exam rooms when I've got that thing on. And then there's sometimes people can't hear me. They're like, what'd you say? But again, I think when we think about the little things we can do to make a difference for everyone else, I do think the masks are something that we can continue to do until we feel like we're safely out of this thing. So I don't want people panicking about Omicron. A part of me is, why is it that right before every big holiday or every big travel season, we start this crap up again? Can't answer that. But I do just think continue to watch your immune system, wear your mask, wash your hands, do all the different immune support things that we've been talking about, and let's see kind of how this thing plays out. I've been asked a lot about vaccines over the last few months, or now we're on years, over the last few years. And I think that, that recommendation continues to be what it is. I am thinking and hoping that the Novavax vaccine gets approved. It's been presented to the FDA, and hopefully that'll get approved by January is the hope, or at least in the first quarter of 2022. And that is a more traditional vaccine used extensively in India. They've had pretty good success with it. So for those of you who are, cut the vaccine thing still on your mind, I'm not going to sway you one way or the other, but there are more options coming for sure. So keep that in mind as well. So safety, mask, hand washing, immune support, taking care of yourself, doing what you can to really stay safe and make sure you're in optimal health. One of the patterns that we've seen with any COVID variant is essentially that, it's inflammation. Inflammation determines the state of your immune system, which then in turn determines a lot of how your body is going to respond to it. So keep that in mind. All right. So we'll move on from Omicron and talk about some of the studies that are out there. I always feel like I have all these stories from the practice, but by the time I show up here and sit in the seat, like I need to start writing them down. I forget to tell you, but there's so many amazing things that happen in the practice every single day. And we really get to see a lot of what we talk about and a lot of what I post about in action and really making a difference for people. And that to me is such exciting work and such worthwhile work. And I love doing it. But the studies I wanted to talk about, there are a couple that I think are really interesting. And guess what? They're not related to COVID at all. So there are three. And then I have a couple of questions from different people that I wanted to see if I could get to. And if you guys have questions along the way, just let me know too. All right. So this first one, who remembers, or who's been, or maybe you are pregnant or know someone pregnant, and remember like the incredible morning sickness. I actually, for one, had terrible, terrible morning sickness. I can tell you all these stories about that. I had such bad morning sickness that the only thing that I wanted to eat when I was pregnant with Rania was Chick-fil-A waffle fries, which of course promptly led me to gain close to 70 pounds during my pregnancy. And you guys know me, I'm not tall. So 70 pounds on me is a lot of weight. And so I just remember having her and, going to the hospital, having her, coming back home, getting back on the weighing scale. And I burst into tears because I actually think I came out heavier after having her than when I went in, because there was just so much water retention and all this other stuff. But I had to work really hard to lose all that weight. And looking back, the nausea was so out of control and no one really had answers other than to eat and eat whatever you want, eat whatever satisfies you. And that's what I did. I was kind of a baby in my knowledge of what I know right now. And so this study is fascinating because it's coming out of, I think it's the journal, the Nutrient Journal. Yes, it's coming out of the journal Nutrients. And it's talking about how Probiotics influence pregnancy-related nausea. And if you don't have a healthy microbiome, that in turn is related to nausea. And so, especially pregnancy nausea or morning sickness. And the specific bacteria that they found related to that, when there's a deficiency of lactobacillus, which is a common strain of bacteria for sure, or probiotics for sure, that's when women experience more morning sickness or more pregnancy-related nausea. So that again just goes to show, or goes to like really hone in on this concept of gut hormones and how the two are related together and how the two interact and how they really influence one another. I think my friend Ashley has asked to be in here. I can't wait to see how this goes. Let me see if I can get her in. Let's see. This is one of my dear friends from forever ago. So anyhow, I thought that study was super interesting because it's talking about sort of the gut hormone connection and how probiotics might make a difference. Ashley, how are you?
I'm not dressed. I'm just showered, but hello.
How are you doing? I saw your name pop up here. Say hello to everybody.
I know. Thanks for having me. And I'm listening. I'm going to listen.
You're going to listen? Okay. If you want to jump off, you're more than welcome to jump off. But I'm just talking about news and stories and all that stuff. Have you been well?
I appreciate it.
Yes. I miss you. Oh. Okay.
Very well, yes.
Good. All right. Well, we're going to have to get together.
I miss you too. It's great to see you, sweet girl.
You too. All right. Well, we'll have to get together. So Ashley has known me.
Best dear.
I don't know how long Ashley's known me.
Yeah, I'm going to keep listening, so go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So Ashley's known me for a really long time.
Since we were baby knowledge people too.
I know. That's right. All righty. Okay. Well, we'll keep moving here through all the stories. So, okay. So back to the study. So probiotics, we talked about probiotics and we talked about how they're connected to hormones and to morning sickness in particular. Let's move on to another one. The next study I want to talk about is super interesting because how many of you guys, like after sitting and studying all day long or sitting and working or being on the computer, you're just hungry and you want to go eat like a bag of chips or ice cream or whatever there is that you can get your hands on? Well, there's a reason for that. This most recent study, this is actually coming out of Cornell, found that the brain consumes more energy pound for pound than any other organ. So that's right, not your workouts, not all the muscle building that everyone, especially me, is trying to do, but your brain is consuming the most energy. And so that is why, like in different scenarios or in different situations where you're using your brain to solve problems, to multitask, to do all these different things that we see people doing at any given moment, you're having the desire for more maybe high fat foods or high sugar foods or carbohydrates even, because you're using up a lot of energy. So the thought here was like, what can we do, or what sort of fuel is ideal for feeding a brain? And what they found in here, that a lot of this is accounted for by just the fact that the brain is a high demand, has all these blood vessels that are overworking at any given moment and demand a higher and higher amount of fuel. And so the conclusion from the study basically was, if you had a way to lower the energy drain and slow down brain metabolism, then it might help indirectly with things like weight and weight gain. So I found this interesting. You guys are probably rolling your eyes, but I found this interesting because when we talk about weight and weight gain, so often we're talking about, calories in, calories out, workouts, all this other stuff. But what if we just gave our brain a rest? And I think that's why meditation and self-care and stress management has become such an important part of overall weight management strategies, because the two are connected. If the brain is too taxed and has way too much going on, then we have no ability to regulate, because the brain is so demanding of our energy, our physical energy, that we have no ability to regulate kind of all the behaviors that come after that. So I thought this was super interesting and pretty powerful, because I think we miss kind of what our triggers are. So many people are trying to lose weight and they do everything and they try everything and they can't figure out what their trigger is for making them gain weight, or why, they engage in the same behaviors over and over again. And I think this particular study kind of leads into that and kind of hints at that for sure. Okay, let's do one more, and then we have a couple of questions to take. And if you guys have questions, I see a few questions coming up here as well. So I'll answer those too in just a moment. Next, anybody out there working the night shift? Raise your hand. I used to do this. I actually think it got me in trouble. But night shifts or shift working is a big part of, and again, I'm going to sound super medical here, but a big part of glucose intolerance, insulin resistance, diabetes, AKA getting our numbers where they shouldn't be and making us gain weight and get fat. I don't know how else to say it. And the reason that night shift eating or night shift workers experience this more is because their entire circadian rhythm is disrupted. So most of us know what the circadian rhythm is, right? You guys all have a decent sense of that. We go to bed, we wake up. Overall, we have this rhythm to our lives that we try to follow. The hormones kind of adapt to that. All these other players in our body adapt to that as well. Well, here are a couple of interesting facts. First of all, we don't just have our regular circadian rhythm, but we also have a hormonal circadian rhythm. We have an electrical circadian rhythm, and all of those rhythms get disrupted when we are eating at the wrong times. So if we are a night shift worker, like I used to be in my emergency room days, and I used to do crazy things like work, 7P to 7A, would do that for 2 days or 3 days, then flip and work maybe 1A to 1P, and then flip again and work 11A to 11P. I was doing that stuff all the time. Well, here's what happened after years and years of doing that. Essentially, I had disrupted my hormone balance. I had disrupted my circadian rhythms. I went for years sleeping maybe 2 hours here, 2 hours there, and thought it was normal, and actually thought I was high functioning, and I was doing such a great job because I didn't need a lot of sleep. And sure enough, my body crashed after a couple of years of doing that. So moving forward, we know that, we've already had all this research about night shift workers and the impact on their health, and, how they have a higher rate of breast cancer, how they have a higher rate of insulin resistance. So these are things we know. This particular study is talking about no matter what time you go to bed, no matter whether you work night shift or you just had a late night out, or whether you skip dinner because of a work meeting and you're home and you want to eat dinner later, the later your meals, the more glucose intolerance, regardless of when you sleep, regardless of what you do, the later your meals, the more glucose intolerance and insulin resistance that you'll have, meaning higher blood sugar levels, higher A1C, more belly fat for sure, a lot of issues with sort of cardiometabolic health. So what's the lesson from this particular study? I think the big lesson here is that eat earlier. And if you are working night shifts, keep your eating still to daytime hours, not to nighttime hours. And that keeps you out of this world of higher blood sugars, higher insulin levels, which ultimately lead to chronic inflammation and lead to all kinds of different autoimmune problems, and again, a higher cancer risk as well. So any of you guys are night shifters? I don't know if anybody else works night shifts or has experienced this, but I know this is one that I experienced firsthand. And I think the other part of the study that's super interesting is just the concept of circadian rhythms, right? So we have our own circadian rhythm. We have sort of an endocrine circadian rhythm. We have a neurological circadian rhythm. There are multiple rhythms. There's not just one circadian rhythm. And I think that's fascinating because so often when we think of circadian rhythms, we're simply thinking that, it has to do with our sleep and our wake cycles, but that's simply not true. There are multiple rhythms, and all these rhythms kind of work together. It's almost like one of those science experiments or atom balls that you would see rotating, but they all work together. They all mesh together to really determine sort of the frequency of how we live our lives, and that in turn determines our health. And all of this vibrational energy and energy medicine and the impact on health, on physical health, is fascinating to me, and more research is being done on it every single day. Okay, so those are the couple of studies we have. I see some questions. So let me answer questions, and then we'll see if anybody else has a topic that they want me to address. One of the questions, one was on Omicron. I kind of answered that in the beginning, where, just to reiterate, if you joined us later, we do expect variants with COVID. I think everyone should not be shocked or surprised. We know the virus is going to mutate. We know it's going to try to outsmart every single thing out there. So there should be no real big surprise there. We know that the more you support your immune system, take care of yourself, hopefully you won't be susceptible or be passing it to other people. And wearing masks is a really important part of that conversation. We also talked about the possibility of the Novavax emerging on the scene in Q1 of 2022. And I know a lot of people are excited about that because it's a more traditional protein subunit vaccine. So I would keep your eyes out for that as well. But that was my quick take on Omicron. We also talked a little bit about we talked about sort of not just Omicron, but what you can do to prevent yourself from getting it. And then also how every holiday season, we see sort of the spike in the news around these different variants. So anyhow, it is what it is. Stay safe, stay healthy, observe precautions. I think we want to stay on that message and make sure everybody's doing their part. Now, the questions that I have a couple questions here and a couple questions that were sent in. One of the ones here, I wanted to ask about blood sugar. I'm a small person and fasting. I'm assuming this is a blood sugar of 108 in the morning. I eat in 2 hours. I'm back to 108. What can I do to get back to normal? So that's a kind of a higher morning blood sugar, a higher fasting blood sugar. The goal for any of you fasting, when you're looking at your blood sugars, we really want them to be roughly, between 70 and 80. That way we know insulin's not spiking too high. So yours, for example, Jennifer, you're spiking a little bit higher. Either you are not getting sort of the protein and fat ratios that you need to keep insulin suppressed. So that's something I would look at. Or you're still getting too many carbohydrates in, too many high sugar foods in. You could look at that as well. Or it's none of that. It's more of a microbiome issue, and you may have candida or a tendency towards yeast overgrowth. And that's the reason that your blood sugars are spiking all over the place. So those are some of the things to try to dig in and get into if you're seeing higher than normal blood sugars. Okay, let's see. I think I had one more question about, let me see if I can find it real quickly. Sorry, guys. Scrolling. I hope you guys are all doing okay. I feel like you guys are quiet. Where are you guys? I love asking where everybody is from and how they're doing. So if you want to throw your city up there, that's always a fun exercise to see where everybody's coming in from. Okay, how long do you have antibodies after you recover from COVID? So that's variable. For those of you who have had COVID, kind of the general rule of thumb is you should have antibodies at least for 90 days, but all the way up to 6 months. Some people have it longer. They have it up to a year, but you can always get your antibody levels checked and kind of see where you are and see what's happening there. But at least 6 months, ideally longer. That may be all my questions from you guys. I had one other question that I never answered, talking about herbs, wanting to know herbs for perimenopause. Anyone out there going through perimenopause or menopause? Anyone having that issue? More and more. In fact, I was talking to one of my patients today who was just saying how perimenopause and menopause seems to be like this massive mystery. Like no one really wants to talk about it. There's no advice about it. You start like losing your ability to think, you start losing your ability to sleep and so much more. And there's really not a lot of help out there. Do you guys feel that way? Do you feel like that's happening? I know this patient in particular felt that and was super frustrated by that. But this particular question about herbs for perimenopause and menopause is a great one. And there are so many. And there are so many that are really dependent on the symptoms you're having. So if you're having irregular cycles, then you may want to try an herb that helps to regulate those cycles a little bit better. So that's where we like herbs like faux tea is a great one for cycle regulation. Chasteberry, because typically in perimenopause and menopause, you're seeing a decrease in progesterone levels, and that helps to indirectly increase it. And something like turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory, and one of the biggest issues as women go into perimenopause, is another great one to use as well. But of course, the conversation is much, much deeper than that, and we get into everything from how gut health impacts perimenopause to how stress and emotional health impacts perimenopause. And being able to put all the pieces of that together is something that I enjoy doing every single day, and what we try to do on our social media platforms as well. So hopefully you guys are taking the bits of information that we sprinkle and learning from it and trying some of it, but hopefully slowly coming up with your own roadmap and plan for healing and success. All right. So I think that's all my questions, unless you guys, let me check, unless you guys have any other questions. Other than that, I've just been busy seeing patients, getting ready for the holidays, working on different projects, and I'm sure you guys have as well too. If you guys have any great, oh, I need help with this. If you guys have any great wellness gift ideas or holistic health gift ideas, that would be awesome. Maybe we could all share them, because I know we're all looking for presents for our loved ones. Some of my favorites have always been essential oil diffusers. I think that's always a good one. And then I found, and I think I'm going to order it and play with it, but I found like a sleep metronome. Have you guys heard of that? That's where you put it by your bedside and it sort of lets out these light waves that are supposed to be calming, turn off the busy mind, along with, I don't think there's any sound with it, but I think it's just the beat. There's a beat and light, and it's supposed to calm you down. So if someone's not sleeping in your life, maybe that's something you could try there as well. Scalp gua sha, where, gua sha to kind of invigorate the face, but this one is for the scalp. That was another kind of cool little gadget that I saw out there too. So there are a lot of fun gadgets for the wellness lover in your life, for sure. But if you guys have other great ideas, definitely feel free to share it. All right, well, I will sign off, and you got to meet my friend Ashley. I don't know if she's still on, but for all of you, I hope you have a great rest of the week and take care of yourself, stay healthy, manage that holiday stress. Don't get overwhelmed by all of it. This is a season to enjoy, and continue to send me your questions. I'll collect them and we can jump on next Tuesday. All right, take care, guys. Bye.